All right, and we are live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTubes, and Facebook. We are back. It's Thursday, 2 weeks away from the start of the NFL season with the Chiefs and the Texans. We've got Dennis and Matt with us. We're going to talk a little redraft strategies and the AFC Conference. How you gentlemen doing today?
I am doing fantastic. I'm off work tomorrow. Looking good to go and put a new back on my shed because we're going to have the electric company put power out there. So No relaxation for this guy.
I'm the opposite. We're going to a resort overnight tomorrow so that I can float down a lazy river.
Very nice. I am somewhat jealous of that. I don't know. I got a lot of draft stuff going on, as I was just mentioning. I'm kind of excited. I like a fucking Zoom one tonight at 7 o'clock my time, and it's going to take like 3 hours, and I really don't want to go to bed late because I got a long day tomorrow. It's supposed to be like 106 most of the day here tomorrow. It's just – but you know what? It is what we do for what we love, right? And I somewhat love fantasy football for the most part, except for last year. Last year we did not have a very good relationship. So,
hey, look, everybody loves it until the games start.
Right, yeah, exactly. It is, I think I mentioned this on Monday's podcast, but I'll say it again. This weekend is, I think, like the biggest draft weekend for most redraft leagues. Everybody tries to get them in this weekend. Some do it, I know, Labor Day, but a lot of people go out and do stuff Labor Day weekend. So this is it. This is your final kind of few days before your redraft. So I just wanted to talk a couple redraft strategies. You know, we talked a little bit about it as we addressed our redraft listener league. We haven't gone too deep into how we kind of handle our redrafts, and I've got one tonight. I know you guys have already done some. You might have some going on. So do you guys ever go in with a specific strategy when you go into your redrafts?
Well, it depends on where you're drafting from. You know, this year especially is a running back heavy first couple rounds. So there's a couple spots. I hate being in the middle. So I want to be first four or probably last three. So that 5 through 9, if I can avoid that, I do. But I think my most recent draft I did from the 10 spot in the break from the grind, Michael Thomas charity draft. I pulled Chubb and Mixon out of the 10 hole with the 110 and 203. So I like that start. Even in Superflex, I'll usually start running back like that late in the draft. So with redraft, you know, I play mostly dynasty. So with redraft for me, I have to remember that it's okay to draft old players.
Yeah, I mean, it really does change your mindset. I noticed too. I feel like when you do a lot of dynasty leagues, you have a lot of people who are pretty high on fantasy football, who are following it year round, and who are pretty well versed. It feels like when you hit redraft season, you start getting more of those people that didn't even really think about football until, you know, a week before the draft started or an hour before the draft started. So it's always kind of interesting. That's been one of the interesting things to me too. When we've gotten a few user questions in the Discord, you'll see people, you know, back at pick 9. Yeah, Saquon dropped to me because people didn't know he was good. I'm like, I wish I was in some of those leagues. That was kind of, but I'm a little bit like Dennis. I hate being in the middle because there's running backs you should probably take in picks 4 through 7 that I can't make myself take. So then I like blow a little early on Michael Thomas. My work one was great because I was picked 10 and he dropped all the way to me. Because, you know, I was pretty set I was going to take a wide receiver back there anyway. But, you know, I mostly the first few rounds I try to do best player available, and then I try to be like Dennis and remember that I'm not just taking rookies so that I have, you know, future youth on my team in the middle rounds, that I need to take players. I think that's where it changes from you trying to take players you think are going to be good in the future to some of those middle rounds. I try to take people with upside.
Yeah, I try not to go in, if I'm being honest, with any kind of set strategy. I think a lot of it, too, depends on where you are. The one thing I do want to do is get a running back, especially this year. with one of my first two picks. Obviously, again, that depends on where you're picking. So, like one of the ones I have tomorrow, it's a one-person keeper, and I talked to you guys about it in the chat. I'm keeping Chark in the 16th round, and I got the second pick, and I know like Zeke and CMC are going back, so I'm taking Zeke right there at the second pick. And even if I was a little bit later, I would want to get one stud running back for sure. I don't hate what Dennis was talking about. I think I did that in our redraft league. I doubled up on running back at the end of the I think the 14th pick, and so I doubled up Chubb and Mixon if I'm remembering correctly. So I don't mind doing that because of how deep wide receiver is. But I wouldn't say, just from my opinion, I wouldn't lock myself in any kind of position there, because if, say, you're picking middle of the second round and somehow a Devontae Adams or Michael Thomas falls to you in the middle of the second round, I'm taking those guys over, even if like a Joe Mixon falls to me there too. So even as deep as wide receiver is, getting that value there, I wouldn't necessarily say I would lock myself into one position saying, hey, I'm going to go do this. But I mean, running back is just so – I feel like it's the shallowest position this year. I even feel like tight end's a little bit deeper than running back is this year, with the fact you only have to start one tight end. So I'm definitely, for me, when I go in looking to get at least one – preferably top 10 running back, at worst top 12 running back to kind of anchor my team. Do you guys?
I don't want to be in a situation where I'm drafting Austin Eckler as my RB1. I'm certainly not
with you on that.
Running back. I'm not a running backs don't matter guy. So I want to give
that would be this one.
That'd be that, Matt. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
In my work league, I went 0 RB until the 5th round and then I took 3 in a row. I ended up with, I think, Jonathan Taylor, Mostert, and Philip Lindsay. So I'm like,
well, I mean, if you go by my rankings, that's not bad.
I know. Well,
but then again,
see, that's been the great thing, because I think there's another flip side when you get into some of these redraft leagues. Guys haven't spent months and months studying these rookies and building up their expectations. So in a couple, I actually had a similar situation to what you're describing. I had one keeper and I had a two pick, and Elliott was there. Saquon had been kept, but CMC went 1. Elliott was there. I took Michael Thomas anyway, and 3rd and 4th round I started stacking, grabbing Taylor, and I can't remember who else I grabbed. But I've seen Jonathan Taylor in these redraft in dynasty leagues. He goes top 2 by the 3rd round. In these redraft leagues, you can get him 5th or 6th round if he ends up doing what we think he might do. That's not a terrible RB1 that I went essentially 0 RB to.
Well, and I think being dynasty players, we get that same thing with the wide receivers. So we've been studying Bryan Edwards and Jalen Reagor, who are likely to be the top receivers on both of their teams. I think a lot of other people are going to look at Philadelphia and say, well, I need Deshaun Jackson or one of those tight ends, or I'm going to go Tyrell Williams, or they'll be even worse. Oh, I remember Nelson Aguilar from Philadelphia. Isn't he good? And then we roll in. That's who. We roll in the 10th, 11th, 12th round, and we're grabbing Bryan Edwards and Jalen Reagor. And halfway through the season, they're putting up wide receiver 1 numbers for us. So,
like a round and a half after I took Taylor in my work league, somebody grabbed Marlon Mack. They're like, I'm surprised you didn't take the top running back. Like I did.
Yeah, I was saying I'm going to end up talking out of both sides of my mouth here now, because I just said don't lock yourself into a position. But if Jonathan Taylor falls to me in even the 4th round on Saturday, I am taking him. I don't think he will. This league that we did the one keeper, it's always super RB heavy. I think last year 11 of our 12 picks were running backs last year. Like it's super RB heavy. So I know I've got to attack somebody early, because the chances of a decent guy even falling back to me in the end of the 2nd round is going to be a little tight. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. Do you guys so far? I mean, how many redrafts have you guys been in? I've only been in 2. This will be my 3rd tonight, and then 4th to Saturday.
I think I'm in like 4 or 5, but they're all charity leagues.
Gotcha.
So, I'm putting effort and time in them because I want to win, but it's not like I'm not really winning cash.
So we have 32 plus 35. I must be in 6. 5 straight redraft and 1 that was a keeper league where I had 1 keeper. But I have my work league that's redraft. We did our listener league, doing one with some of the FLA guys, and I have one that hasn't drafted yet that I don't know when it's drafting. They keep saying they're going to do a slow draft. I told them we're sort of running out of time for.
Yeah,
it's not going to be as slow as you think.
Yeah, it better be a pretty speedy draft.
So with you guys being in multiple ones, do you have a favorite spot to pick at this year, or a favorite draft spot? Even if it's not just one, like do you prefer back end, middle end, middle, bookends of the draft? I mean, for me personally, I think it's the bookends. I haven't really liked, for some reason, dynasty wise, I've really enjoyed picking in the middle because I've been in the middle in like anything I've done this year for dynasty. But on my redrafts, I prefer to either be at the front or the back end of my drafts.
I'm kind of partial to 4 and 10 right now in 12 teams. 4 and 10.
Yeah, I like being at the ends. So really, my preference would be back end 10, 11, or 12 in a 12 team, just because I like the way it falls there better, and the duo of players you seem to end up grabbing there seems better.
All right, last one, and only because I heard a lot of people talking about this. So I already know Matt would do this at 1-1, so I guess I should angle this more toward Dennis. Where would you feel comfortable taking Michael Thomas in the first round? Like, what pick, as you're going through, do you feel like has finally hit that point where, like, is it really worth it to take one of these running backs over Michael Thomas? I think, Matt, is it just CMC for you? Is that it?
No. I mean, if we're being honest, what you should do, I think I think Dennis and I were similar when we ticked off our top. It was Thomas, Barkley. You should take Ezekiel Elliott. You should probably take Kamara, and then where it starts, where I would probably defer to Thomas is instead of Dalvin Cook or Mixon. So I'd probably 5 in that keeper league. If Barkley was there too, I would have taken Barkley.
I'm good. I'm comfortable with Cook at 5. I don't know. Given the leagues I'm in, a lot of times I'm probably splitting. If I'm at 5, 6, 7, I'm probably splitting the pick between Thomas and who did I just say? Cook. Thomas and Cook, or Thomas and Derrick Henry, or I'm not one of those people who's drafting CEH at the 108 yet or 107. Some of those people going crazy with him there, but it's probably around the 6 or 7 range is where I'm grabbing Thomas.
All right, I'm with you on that. I think I'd actually probably put you closer to 9 for me, 9 or 10, just because I do think I'd take Mixon, just because I think he's going to have a huge year. And then depending on, again, if you're looking at, if literally you're sitting at pick 10 and it's been nothing but RBs, I think I'd probably go Chubb at that point, because picking 10, I know I'm likely going to get possibly an Adams or even a Julio. And while they're not Thomas, I don't think either one of those finished that close behind him. So I think if 9 running backs go and I'm sitting at 10, I'm thinking I'm probably going to go Chubb then. Or, I mean, as much as I hate to say, like you just said, or an Eckler type, just to get an RB, because I know I can still get a wide receiver who's going to produce close to Thomas right behind him when it comes back around to me. So, I mean, I'm probably one of those people who's not going to end up with Thomas on any of my teams this year, because I feel like if I'm picking 11 or 12, he's going to go before it gets to me, and that's probably where I'd feel most comfortable taking him, just because I want to get that RB. And at that 11 and 12, you can kind of double up.
Well, and I think too, like I'm very comfortable taking Leonard Fournette, like late 3rd, 4th round. I know that it's in vogue to hate on Fournette, but I feel like he's going to have a really good year. He's probably
you don't
not
hear
going
my
to
bold
catch
prediction.
72 passes, but I think he's gonna have a pretty solid year. I'm good. I'm good with Fournette as my running back. I'd rather have Fournette as my RB2 than Eckler.
I think I'd rather have Eckler. Matt, what about you? Be the tiebreaker.
I would much rather have Eckler.
And again, that might just be more toward my bold prediction with the Jaguars as well. That's going to go heavily into my not love for four. Not that I think Fournette's going to be bad. I think he's going to be an RB2 this year, but I just don't think he's going to. I think Eckler's going to get a ton of work. I'm not as sold on the Kelly Justin Jackson hype that's all coming out of Los Angeles. I think it's going to be
no Justin Jackson hype.
Well, I was trying to give Matt some love. I was just trying to make Matt happy.
Here's the thing, though. We saw Eckler cede a lot of the primary rushing work for a majority of the season and still end up as RB4. I was looking at the Chargers receiver situation. Mike Williams obviously already banged up. They have Allen, they have Williams, they have Hunter Henry, and behind that, Matt, you could probably make it onto. They have undrafted.
I've been reaching out to Herbert. To see if he can get me an invitation to camp. But
it's very possible Austin Eckler ends up playing slot receiver for them. So I still think he's going to have a big year. And in PPR, if you were talking about standard, I will give you Fournette. But if we're playing PPR, I don't think Fournette's going to have a huge receiving year, and I think Jacksonville sucks. So that and if they get buried early, that kills a little bit of Fournette if he's not a primary receiver.
Well, and I will acknowledge that Eckler has ticked up with the Mike Williams injury, but I think that's going to end up being a lower volume offense than in LA with Tyrod Taylor at the quarterback. And that's why I think Kelly is going to get, more work. So we'll see. We'll see. That's why they play the games.
Yeah.
What we really need is to go to Matt to ask all our questions about the Rams running back, since that's his team that he runs on a daily basis.
Cam Akers. Cam Akers all day, baby. I'm all in on Cam, man. I think he's going to be just fine. He's another guy that I actually think what was his ADP? I was looking at stuff earlier today. I think he's going in like the 7th or 8th round in redrafts right now. I'm hitting smash on that every single day. Like, he may split sometime here and there, but I'm not that sold on him as an overall player, but I think with the way their offense is going to be run this year, I think they're going to rely heavily on him. So I'm all in on Cam.
I just can't wait for our Halloween show when you buy a Rams polo and you have the best costume of any of us.
Wrong, sir. I already have a Rams windbreaker. It is in the mail.
Yes, see, you're ready to go.
With a Motorola headset. You have no idea. I'm ready to go. When is Ed Sheeran last year? Sean McVay this year. All right. I did have two more. I changed my mind because this I do think is a big deal. We see a lot of people kind of do this. How late are you willing to go on quarterback? Because I feel like none of us are going to be the guys who take that Lamar or Patrick Mahomes early on. I think the next up is Dak and Russell, who I think are like 5th and 6th round guys. I'm assuming you guys usually don't take them there. How late are you willing to wait on quarterback?
I'm willing to wait. Yeah, in Superflex, 7th, 8th round, 9th round to take my first quarterback. It's a situation that you have to play the draft and play the room and see how it goes. The league that I just finished drafting in, it was a Superflex, and Jackson went in the. I feel like he went in the 2nd. And Mahomes in the 4th, but then it was probably 8th round before there was a quarterback run, and it was a substantial run, lasted about 3 rounds, but it was. Let's see, I think that might have been. Look at that. Sleeper, you can't ever find anything.
Go ahead, Matt. Why he's looking that up?
I think for me, like Superflex, Dennis is much more daring than me. Superflex, I make sure, but most of the redraft things I play are one quarterback. Like in our listener league, it was Superflex, so you had to go early.
Yeah.
I usually watch the board. So in my work league, Lamar Jackson and Mahomes went in the first round, and people started taking quarterbacks in the second and third. I waited till the ninth and took Drew Brees, who nobody was excited about, but who I think is going to be a fine quarterback one, and I stacked my receivers and running backs first so that I had depth positions. In the league that I'm doing in the middle of right now, Deshaun Watson was there at the end of the 6th round, so I took him because I thought that was a good value for what I was looking at. So it kind of depends. Yeah. I will watch and see where guys kind of go and where quarterbacks go. If everybody's hammering quarterback early, I tend to wait toward the middle and wait for those guys that aren't maybe flashy, but that are going to be sturdy. But if you see top talent starting to drop, Kyler Murray went one pick in front of where I took Watson. If he would have dropped, I would have taken him too. Back of the 6th round, seeing guys that might put up those kind of points is appealing to me.
Yeah, I ended up taking Baker at QB or at 7-10. Was where I took him, and then I took Carr in the 10th round at 10:03 as my 2 quarterbacks in that league. I didn't take a third, so I could have probably waited another. If I'd have waited another round, a couple rounds, I'd have been looking at guys like Phillip Rivers, Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold. So I was okay taking Baker there in the 7th.
Yeah, well, I'd be too, especially where I have him ranked. So, yeah, I think so. If you're going super flex like Dennis was just talking about, I'm with you. I'll probably try and get my first one right around that round 7 range. Again, it depends. If you see some huge run in like the 3rd round where, say, 12 quarterbacks, 14 quarterbacks go off the board, you're going to have to grab somebody. But I prefer to wait. In single QB, I'm with Matt. I mean, I actually saw one of the ones that I did, I kid you not, Baker was on the board in the 14th round of this draft. So I would not suggest reaching for a quarterback at all. I'm someone who I saved my last 2 picks for my kicker defense, if you have kicker defense in there, and I'm grabbing as many running backs and wide receivers as I can. I only get 1 tight end, 1 the quarterback. Now, I might change that this year. Just with everything going on COVID-19, I may try and grab a backup quarterback and tight end in case something happens to my starters, but I mean, with quarterback is so deep this year, I would say you easily have 20, maybe 21 guys that could all easily finish in the top 15. Like, there's a lot of really good core. I think for me, probably my bottom 5 guys, I don't think have any shot to finish in the top 15. Outside of that, I think there's a lot of quarterbacks could be really good. So I'm suggesting waiting as long as you can on quarterback.
I would say, too, you have to observe and see what people are doing in the draft year. And so I tend to be with you. Like, I took Mark Andrews in the 4th round, my work draft. I would have been happy rolling 1 tight end and rolling 1 quarterback until I was playing with a different kind of group of people that maybe have different values that started taking 2 and 3 tight ends and 2 and 3 quarterbacks, in which case you probably are better served getting somebody that you don't mind, because you may not be able to play waiver roulette.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. So for me, I have a lot of time. Like I'm, we've talked about it. I'm high on Jonnu Smith this year. He's a guy who's going very end of the draft. So yeah, I'm with you. You have to watch it. That's the biggest thing I think everybody says, right? You have to know your draft room. You have to pay attention to that. But if you're going just typical talk, like we were just saying, I mean, I'm fine even getting, as much as I'm not a big fan of my quarterback, Jared Goff, I do think that he could be good in a redraft setting. So I would take him. Tight end was the last question that I wanted to ask. We were just talking about, you were just kind of talking about how you were waiting on that. Is that kind of the same thing for you guys? I imagine, well, Matt, you just said you took Andrews early. Are either one of you guys reaching for one of those top 3? If not, like, where's that safe route? Like, for me, I think if you can get I was trying to think of who the other in that area is, like a Waller, Higbee. Who else did I have right up in that range? There was somebody else. I wish I had you know what? I guess I could just pull my rankings up. I've got them right here. Let's see here. So if I see like a Waller, Henry, Ingram, Higbee, Fant, or Hurst, all those guys, if they fall to like the 7th, 8th, 9th round, I might try and grab one of those this year. I usually tend to wait, like you were just talking about, Matt. But if I can get one of those guys to fall to like the 7th to 9th round, I probably am going to hit yes this year, just based on what we're looking at going in. What do you guys do when it comes to the tight end position?
Well, I'm kind of watching the board. So the reason I took Andrews early is it was the middle of the 4th round. And I was like, that to me felt like pretty good value for a guy that has
great
potential
value.
to be. You know, I had taken 3 receivers and I was about to take
be
a
the
running
RB.
back. I'm taking Andrews here, you know, because they dropped. But usually if those guys go in like, you know, first, second, I saw Kelsey and Kittle in the leagues I went, and even Waller, both were all were gone in the 2nd round. I'm not going that high. You know, I'll wait and drop down. In our work league, Fant went in the 9th round. I would have taken him. You know, if he was still there, that's where I would have gone. But I already had Waller, so I just moved on. Or I already had Andrews, so I moved on to something else.
You know, I'm not opposed to taking Kittle or Kelsey in the 2nd round. It kind of comes down to what does my portfolio look like. So if I've, you know, in 20 some odd teams and I don't have Kelsey or Kittle anywhere, and let's say I started off with Elliott at 4 and Kittle is sitting there for me at 209, I may go, you know what? I think I don't have him anywhere. I'm going to take a shot here. But usually I end up I've got like, I think I took Kelsey one time in a late 1st or early 2nd just for the hell of it because I didn't roster him anywhere. And so I don't have Kittle anywhere. But after that, if Andrews is in the 4th, I'm usually good there. But the rest of them after Andrews, I'm not really too keen on. A couple times I've seen Ertz in the 8th round or so, a few picks from me coming at me, and I thought, well, if Ertz makes it to me here, I'm going to take him. But I'm not that in on Waller this year, and Ingram in his injury history, I just have concerns about that. And so for the most part, unless I, for the hell of it, roll the dice on Kelsey or Andrews, late 1st, early 2nd, or 4th for Andrews, I'm then moving on, and I'm at the back, and I'm grabbing Jonnu Smith in the 10th round. Or this year, I'm looking at Eric Ebron and going, God damn, I think he might have a year in Pittsburgh.
So that's I just went and looked at our draft board for our FLA Riders draft, which also made me feel better because I had pick 5 and I actually did take a running back, so I'm not always a hypocrite. I took Kamara, but I took my tight end 10:08. I got Fant, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of is what you're talking about. Watching, there's a lot of guys we think have tight end 1 potential that are going, you know, 8th to 12th round.
Yeah, I took Jonnu at 12.3 and Herndon at 16.3.
Nice.
Well, and in our redraft league, Matt took Herndon in the 13th, and somebody else got him in the 16th, which is really
that's great value there. The 16th, that's amazing value. No, I think. See, now you're making me feel bad about keeping Chart because I had Andrews in the 13th round, and it was so hard for me to throw that back. But I felt like having that. I know you're not as high in as Chark as me and Dennis are, but having that like solid wide receiver 2 in the 16th round, I thought was just a tad bit better value. So I ended up doing that.
You should feel bad about that decision.
I do because
I'm not going to make you feel any better about that.
I love Mark Andrews, so I'm a little disappointed about that as well. But all right,
we will talk. Mark Andrews, he'd be on your team.
Well, it's just because I'm going to draft him in the 1st round at pick 2. That's how much I'm going to show him my love. No, that's not going to happen. I might take him in the 4th, but I don't think he'll get back to me.
You know what? If you're really just trying to throw the league away, you should draft Minshew in the 1st round because maybe you'll get a case of Bud Light out of it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to – I tried that last year. I went into this draft a little bit too cocky, and I was I got just destroyed all all season long. Again, granted, and Matt, because we talked about a lot, that was the team I had Juju on, Devin Singletary, coming out of the draft, I was like, fucking winner. I don't even have to do anything all season long. And then, everybody got it hurt, and it just ended badly for me.
Speaking of which, pour one out for Devin Singletary when the only report out of camp is that he can't hold on to the football.
He'll be all right. Fumbles are overrated. They say the same thing about Jonathan Taylor right now. Jonathan Taylor, RB12, 2020. Just you watch. All right, let's talk AFC. We'll kick this off with we're starting with the AFC East, right? That's what I have on here. Okay.
Apparently.
Is that what I have? I don't even know. I'm honestly
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm honestly not looking at the show sheet, so I'm just guessing. I'm pretty sure I was right because I set it up to where we can talk about the North last, and that's what matters because of the Kings of the North, right there. There we go. All right, so I'll let Matt. I'll let you kick it off. Who do you have? Who do you have winning the AFC East and all that other good stuff?
All right, AFC East. Sometimes thought of as the AFC least, especially this season. I'm not high on our friends the Patriots, but I have the Bills winning at 10-6. I have the Patriots at 8-8, Dolphins at 5-11, and Jets at 5-11. Although the Jets are really, really making me rethink whether I need to go strip a few wins away from them.
So I rolled out. I have the Patriots winning the division at 9-7, followed by the Dolphins at 7-9, the Bills at 6-10, and the Jets at 4-12.
Wow!
Bill's
Coffee is about to eat our lunch.
Yeah, well, good thing I'm not dieting.
No, I'm sorry. If you're seeing my reactions, we're about to get a massive storm, and my backyard is freaking. I guess my backyard can't freak out, but there are trees looking like they're about to blow through my sunroom here. It's not looking pretty over here. So
that's what happened to me on half of our shows during the summer. I'm looking.
Yeah, I just heard. I wasn't even sure if you guys heard that. I swear that it sounds like that lightning hit right next to my house. It may not look dark on my computer screen, but it looks like the end of times is coming right outside in my backyard.
Was it last Thursday when I had to leave you guys a message that said we're about to get pounded by hail?
Yeah, that's what they're saying is about to happen here, and I'm trying to debate on if I need to leave or not because I didn't believe it. But now watching the wind blowing as much as it is, they're saying, "Hey, this massive storm's coming through. We're expecting it's dime-sized hail, but still, I don't want my car to get hit with hail." So, yeah, if you guys see me just cut off the show, Dennis and Matt will carry it. I'll be back in a couple minutes. So, AFC East, I have the Bills going 9-7 and winning the AFC East. I had the Patriots at 8-8. The Dolphins at 6-10, and the Jets at 3-13. My bold predictions were I think Isaiah Hodgins gets 4 receiving touchdowns this year for the Buffalo Bills. For the Patriots, I have Damian Harris finishes as a low-end running back 2. Preston Williams for the Dolphins finishes as a mid-tier wide receiver 2. And for the Jets, I just changed this one a minute ago, trying to figure out why the hell Kalen Ballage scored more touchdowns than Le'Veon Bell. What about you guys? What are your predictions for the AFC East?
Well, Dennis, go first.
I don't really have one for the Patriots. I kind of thought about it, and I wasn't sure what would be bold, what would be relevant. To me, there's just a little too much unknown there. I kind of played around with a couple things, and nothing really seemed feasible. With the Bills, I thought, I feel like Stephon Diggs is going to finish as a wide receiver 3, but I went and looked at my rankings, and I have him ranked as a wide receiver 3, so that doesn't feel like it's very bold. And given that I think the Bills are going to go 6-10, I'm not expecting a whole lot out of Josh Allen this year, so they're going to struggle. But for the Jets, I think Chris Herndon has the chance. He's really developing chemistry. So I have him breaking out. I ranked him as, I think, tight end 22 or 23. But I'm not going to be the least bit surprised if he's tight end 10 or 12. So I'm calling Herndon as my breakout if he doesn't get injured again or end up in Gase's doghouse. And then for the Dolphins, I think Jordan Howard is going to rush for 1,200 yards. I think the Dolphins are going to be a decent team. I have them finishing second in the division at 7-9. but they're going to be competitive and in enough games that Jordan Howard is going to get some work.
All right, so for me, I'm going to go for the Patriots. I'm going to say Cam Newton starts all 16 games, that he's healthy. I don't think it's on him that they don't have an incredible roster. For the Bills, I'm going to say Josh Allen improves his completion percentage for the third straight season. He did better last year than he did as a rookie. I think he keeps that trend going. For the Dolphins, Preston Williams finishes as their top receiver. And I'm forgetting a team. Oh, the Jets. I predict that Adam Gase does not make it to the end of the season.
Ooh. I hope so, buddy. I hope so.
Trading for a player that you have just signed off the street.
I know. It's funny too, because I watched that. I saw that happen, and I just started laughing. And the funny thing is, I can't remember if it was on Ian Rappaport's or someone else retweeted it and said something. I was looking at the Jets fans in the mentions talking about like how this was such a great trade and everything. It's like, oh, it's a late round pick. We'll get it back. I'm like, no, it really wasn't. Like, you could have just picked him up. I don't really see a whole lot of teams running out there and be like, hey, Kalen Ballage, come play for us. So, yeah, I'm not I think that was kind of a bad move too, but it is what it is. So instead of waiting till we give all of them, we'll talk about each division here as we go. So obviously none of us are big on the Jets this year. I assume, Dennis, you agree with Matt, as do I, that Adam Gase will not be long for the job there with the Jets if he has a season we all think. Yeah,
that is correct.
I don't think any of us will be that sad about that either. The Dolphins, let's see here. So I'm one game behind you, Dennis. Matt, I guess we're all kind of in the same range, Matt. You only have them a couple losses more than us. I mean, what do you think is their biggest kind of weakness coming into this year? Because I do think they improved their team, obviously signed all those really great defensive free agents. I think their offense could actually be very explosive. So what is it that's just holding them back for both of you?
I just think they're a year away.
Okay.
I like the Dolphins. I was kind of surprised with how the record shook. That's why I like that site, because you're picking week by week following their schedule. And I purposely will not look at the team records while I'm going through those schedules, because I don't want that to be influencing. And I figured when I got to the end, I probably have the Dolphins as a 7-win team. And I looked over and I'm like, well, maybe not this year. And
they don't have an easy schedule, though. They really don't.
They don't have an easy schedule. And I think Fitzmagic probably plays most, if not all, the year. And their offensive line is still a work in progress. I do think they got better on offense. I think they got better on defense. I like their coaching. I think they're trending. There's depressing 5-11s, and then there's good 5-11, 6-10. I think they would be a good 5-11, 6-10. I think they'll be a frisky team, a hard out, but I just don't think they're quite there.
I gave them 7 wins. I think they have 5 wins. I think 5 wins is where they are. I'm giving the other 2 wins are going to be surprises. I think that Brian Flores has that team playing. That team played hard for him last year when everybody was, they're going to tank for Tua, they're going to suck. The team was like, no, we don't think so. And they improved from last year. They were 3-13 last year?
Yeah.
So
I think they were better than that. They were 5-11 last year.
No, he's talking about the year before. The year before Flores got there. Yeah, the year before Flores got there, right? That's what you're talking about?
With Flores last year.
So
they were 5-11.
They had 5 wins last year. Up. Yeah.
So they play hard for him. He's a good coach. He's got a good staff, and they've added talent. They're clearly smart when they say, yeah, I know we spent a 4th-round pick on this guy, but motherfucker can't play. So we're going to jettison him, and we're going to move on. We've got lots of depth. We don't need to have somebody with no vision playing any of our positions. So I feel like there's a couple wins there that are going to come from coaching that they're going to surprise with the upside, and that's how I got them up to 7.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to kind of pull a little bit of a Matt Fox here. I think I've become a closet Dolphins fan. Like I've really kind of fallen in love with this team. I think Brian Flores, I would say I could honestly see him winning like Coach of the Year in the next couple of years. I do think the Dolphins are finally kind of on the up. But it seems like we have been talking about it. They had some good years with Ryan Tannehill, but what Flores was able to do with that roster last year, I think he's clearly a phenomenal coach. While I do think Herbert and Burrow are better than Tua is still a really damn good quarterback. And if he stays healthy, he's going to be a really good quarterback. They've got a ton of great weapons around him. You know, I saw a mock draft for 2021 where they ended up getting Chuba Hubbard. My God, if they could get Hubbard into that backfield, then they just got their RB1 as well. Like, they can improve that offensive line some. I think the Miami Dolphins could be what we're talking about the Bills this year. Dolphins being next year easily. So I'm liking where they're going.
Well, I don't think the Dolphins are going to lose one more game than they do this year. So I'm not sure what you're talking about when you say talking about the Bills there.
Well, yeah, you are not high on the Bills. Most everybody else is. So yeah.
See, and you're not going to appreciate this comparison as much, but sometimes even when teams do really well bringing in new talent, it can take a while to gel. Had they gotten more of an off season together to work on some of these things, a more traditional off season, I might feel even better about that. But on defense, they have a lot of good players, but a lot of guys that haven't played together before. They're going to be playing in systems and offense. We've seen teams that have made big improvements that we're really excited to take an additional year. When Cousins went to Minnesota, we thought they'd be there. They were 8-8. They didn't make the playoffs. The Browns last year, I think they're in much better shape this year than maybe they even were last year. I think the same kind of thing for the Dolphins. Sometimes it just takes that one more year of struggle to kind of get where you need to be.
Well, I don't have them making the playoffs.
No, yeah, we know. Well, we're just saying we think they're going to take a step forward next year. All right, so me and Matt are in on the Bills. What is it about the Bills that you don't think is going – or why do you think they're not going to replicate the success they had last year, Dennis?
I'm not sold on Josh Allen. I think that while Stephon Diggs is the best wide receiver they've had, I think that Stephon Diggs is also the moodiest wide receiver they've had. And if they're struggling and he's not getting the ball, he's not going to make the locker room a better place. I know McDermott is a really good coach, but I think Diggs has shown that he can be a little iffy when it comes to that stuff. Overall, the receiving core isn't super strong. You're relying on Dawson Knox to show things he hasn't shown. Cole Beasley is their de facto number 2 because I think Diggs and Brown kind of do the same things. So Brown is probably going to be the one that suffers the most. And I just feel like I can appreciate Matt's belief that Josh Allen is going to get more accurate, 0.1, 0.2 more. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sold on his accuracy. I wasn't sold on it coming out of college. And while he's improved a little bit, I still think he's got a ways to go there. And I don't know that he has it in him.
Yeah. Accuracy's overrated. He's got those legs. He'll be all right. Do you both of you, or I meant that both in a football sense and a sexual sense there, Matt Fox. I saw your eyes.
I was more alarmed that you said accuracy was overrated.
Oh, it is. It's overrated. He'll be all right. Do either one of you or both of you have the Pats in the playoffs? Because I do not. I think they are going to just miss making the playoffs.
Dennis says that was the only team he had for 500.
Oh,
yeah.
Gotcha.
I have him in there.
So I guess, Matt,
out.
So do I. I try too. I finished it. And of course, Bill Belichick's just going to end up going 15-1 and just laughing at me. But it's not even Cam.
The losses become too much. They had so many big time. People are focused on the offense, and I get that, and that's going to be different, and it's going to be an adjustment. But where I really am more cautious about New England is they had a ton of premium defenders leave in free agency, which would be tough to overcome. And then all people talked about their opt-outs, the offensive opt-outs. They had a few role players and stuff opt out, but they had some high-profile defenders opt out. Hightower, Chung, guys that have institutional experience that they need after losing so many guys in free agency. That last year, the defense really carried that team the first half of the season and arguably carried them to where they were. And it took a massive hit. I know he's an incredible coach, incredible at making adjustments, but at some point in time, the losses become too much.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest fear.
I'm going to go ahead and take 2 wins away from the Pats, and I'm going to give them to the Dolphins, so the Dolphins will make the playoffs.
There you go. Yeah, I think, and it's funny that we say that we're worried about the way that they have lost pieces on the defense, because it seems like Bill is able to put together a defense every single year. So it's not. I feel like it's us saying we don't trust Bill Belichick. I think the fact that he gets to 8-8 with this team speaks to how good of a coach he is. Like, I'm with you. I'm just not sold on this roster altogether.
Think of Mike Tomlin with the Steelers last year. Arguably, he put up Coach of the Year performance, even though that team was was often unwatchable. Like, you got to separate, what he managed to do with what he had.
I do not have to separate. That's the great thing about being a fantasy analyst. I can say whatever I want, as long as I have conviction behind it. Oh, no, we lost Matt. What happened? I didn't kick him off, I promise. All right, well, while we're waiting for Matt to come back, let's jump into the AFC West. I'll kick it off first here. So I have the Chiefs going 14-2, 6-0 in the division. That's not right. Dang it. Full transparency. I messed up, and I lost all my stuff. I did have them losing to the Broncos 1 game. So there's Matt. He's back. I did have them losing to the Broncos, so that is not correct. But I'll get my corrected one up eventually. But the Chiefs were going to win their division anyways. I did have the Broncos coming in second at 10-6. The Raiders coming in at 8-8, and the Chargers at 3-13. My bold predictions were, I know it was very rough to do that. I was crying inside for all of my Justin Herbert love. So for the Chiefs, what did I give my bold prediction for on the Chiefs? I'm trying to remember. Oh, CEH will not rush for 1,000 yards. Broncos, Lindsey will outscore Gordon in fantasy points. Edwards, I think me and Dennis both had the same one here. I think Bryan Edwards finishes as the best fantasy wide receiver for Las Vegas. And Chargers, though, you guys will like this one. While they do suck this year, and they will be better, from Herbert's start to his finish, when he gets his first start as an NFL starting quarterback to when he finishes, fantasy points per games or stats-wise, he will finish as a top 15 QB for fantasy. Go ahead.
Taylor
wants to go next. No, Justin Herbert.
I'll go next. I have the Chiefs winning the division at 13-3, followed by the Raiders at 10-6. I have the Raiders and Chiefs both making the playoff. The Broncos at 7-9, and the Chargers at 4-12. I don't really have a bold prediction for the Chiefs. They have a powerful offense. They have top 1 or 2 or 3 players at every fantasy relevant position. Well, okay, maybe a stretch to put Edwards-Helaire at 1, 2, or 3, but still a RB1. The Broncos, I think Cortland Sutton is going to catch 90 passes. I think that he's going to be a lot more efficient than he was last year. 125, 130 targets, 140 targets. He's the dog out there. For the Raiders, like you said, Bryan Edwards leading the team in fantasy points. And then for the Chargers, Joshua Kelly is going to lead the Chargers in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns.
Interesting. I just want to say this before Matt goes, because I can see the look on his face. All the bad juju is now going to come toward you and the Lions after all the love Matt gave you on Monday for the Lions picks and everything. And all he was wanting, I think, was to say, let's just throw the Broncos a little bit of love. Let's put it out there in the universe. Let's make it happen. And you just – it looks like you shit all over his bed, man. Go ahead, Matt.
I don't know how I recover from that. I have the Chiefs winning the division.
Watch your sheets.
What?
He said I shit all over your bed. I said wash your sheets.
Yeah, definitely. I have the Chiefs winning the division at 12-4, which is painful to say. Broncos at 9-7, Raiders at 6-10, and I guess I was the most bullish on the Chargers at 5-11. I don't even like the Chargers, guys. I don't know why you do this to me all the time. Predictions, for the Chiefs, I'm going to go ahead and say Patrick Mahomes gets back to being QB1 for fantasy. For the Broncos, Philip Lindsay ends up being the Broncos' leading rusher. For the Raiders, I'm going to say Theo Riddick catches 70 passes. And for the Chargers, I'm going to say Justin Jackson runs so well that they cut Joshua Kelly. No, I'm just kidding. They won't cut Joshua Kelly, but Justin Jackson, I think he'll put up at least 800 yards on the ground.
All right, let's move into. I guess we should talk about these teams. So obviously, what is it? Well, the Chargers, I think, if we're all being honest, aren't necessarily worth talking about that much. I think they're a couple of years away. They've got a lot of things they got to improve on. I mean, I do love Herbert. We'll see what they do with Allen.
They do have a phenomenal secondary, though. So I think they're going to win a few games. I mean, they got Chris Harris to go with James and Hayward. I mean, they've got some playmakers.
You know, as much as I like some of the pieces on the Chargers, I think unfortunately this season might cost Anthony Lynn his job. It's just a function. I mean, he might get another year based on we're transitioning at quarterback type of thing. But I just feel like he's been there long enough that he should have put it together, and they should have pushed into the playoffs a couple times with Phil Rivers, and now they're in the process of having to rebuild rookie quarterback and stuff. And I feel like it may be the end of the road for Lynn, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, if we're honest, there's no guarantee they're not still pretty hard rebuilding offense next year, because ideally Herbert takes over, but Allen, Hunter Henry, Mike Williams, all in contract years, and we've already discussed they don't have a lot of optimism behind them. I know what you're saying about Anthony Lynn could be correct. Personally, I have a feeling he will get a kind of get a chance to try again next year. As long as if they're getting blown out a lot, I think he's gone. If they're a competitive team that just can't quite make it happen, with some of the younger players and in a transition year, I think he'll get a little benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think he will, and I think he deserves it. I mean, outside of last year, he's been in the playoff race or in. I mean, we've talked about for years how that those Chargers seem to disappoint every single year. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, I had to go to the Super Bowl.
He's only a year removed from being tied for the best record in the AFC.
Yeah.
In 2018, they were 12-4. If they would have had the tiebreaker over the Chiefs, they would have been the 1 seed in the AFC.
So on the Las Vegas Raiders, I was close to having them in. As I mentioned before Matt came back, I lost all my predictions, and so I still had them close to making it. I did not have them making it in the first round. I think I did. I can't remember. Their first 8 games are very tough. If they can come out of that, 3-5 or even 4-4, I do think they'll have a really good shot to make the playoffs. I do think they're a good team this year. I actually think like the NFC West, the AFC West, the AFC North, and the NFC North are all extremely tough divisions this year. There's 3 teams in each of those that I could easily see, in some of them 4 teams that could easily make the playoffs. So Raiders, I think they've got a tough schedule, tough division. I wouldn't be surprised if they make the playoffs, but I think they're here to stay. I really like the moves that they've made, and I do think they're going to be a good team moving forward. What are your guys' thoughts on the Raiders?
I like David Carr this year. I've picked him up in a few spots. I think he's going to have a good season.
Derek Carr.
Yeah, Derek Carr.
Him too.
David Carr is a phenomenal analyst, though.
I'm old, okay? Give me a break. David Carr was when I was younger. I think Derek Carr's the one thing the Raiders have over, I think, every other team is that their head coach and general manager have security. So they've decided that they're building a certain way. They didn't have to worry about, well, we have a tight deadline to get competitive and winning. They traded away Mack. They traded away Cooper. And they've built the team with players that they want to play there. And it seems to be working. Josh Jacobs is a good back. They went wide receiver heavy this season after last season. Darren Waller is panned out. They've got a good offensive line. So I feel like they're going to be competitive and they're going to play well. Like I said, I have them 10-6 and making the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think they're a young team that you showed last year. They're going to be competitive. And I think Gruden and Mayock have a plan that they're working on. I just think they're also a young team, and as we saw last year, that can lead you to kind of fall off the shelf at times. They don't have the easiest schedule, and I think there's still some growing pains. There's some things they have to figure out. The fact that you could poll 10 different fantasy analysts and probably get 10 different answers about who's going to lead the team as a receiver tells you that they still have some things to work out. I like the talent there. I think we all three like Bryan Edwards long term, but again, they have a lot of young players that are coming in that got no offense, that will have never taken a snap in the NFL until it matters.
I really don't feel like there's much to say about the Chiefs. They're good. I mean, they're bringing back pretty much, I believe, what is it, like almost all but one of their starters from the Super Bowl team. So they're outside of just like a massive injury hit on that team, they're going to be fine. But the Broncos were a little bit split on here. I'm the highest on them. Matt, you're right there with me, just a game off. But Dennis, you don't have them making the playoffs. So what is it on the Broncos side that you are not necessarily buying into? Or what is it you think that they're going to do? Because they finished 7-9 last year, right, Matt? So where is it? Why is it you don't see them either taking a step up or I guess even a step back?
They've got some good pieces. I think Drew Lock is going to be a good quarterback. I think he's going to be up and down this year. There's going to be a lot of inconsistency in that offense coming into this offseason where arguably their second and third best wide receivers are going to be rookies. And I get Jerry Jeudy's the best route runner to come out of college since, Red Grange, but they're still going to have to go through the growing pains. I think the defense is starting to get some age on it. They've lost Chris Harris, like Matt likes to point out. They've got some good pieces. And if they go 9-7, I'm not going to be the least bit surprised. If they squeak into the playoffs, that won't surprise me. I just think that I'm in the year away camp with them.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for me, it's the natural evolution. They did lose Chris Harris, and then they traded for A.J. Boye. Bryce Callahan back this year, Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons, they'll be fine in the secondary. Von Miller, Bradley Chubb's back. They found some nice depth pieces. Alexander Johnson really developed into something. Middle linebacker last year. They went and got Jarrell Casey. I think their defense is going to be pretty incredibly fierce. They spent a lot of time working on and building up the offensive line. They have Mike Munchak there to help improve that. I think that was a concern. Better play calling and better luck would have had them to 9 or 10 wins last year. They lost that Chicago game on what most people can't understand was a play that was allowed to continue by the referees. They had a similar kind of officiating faux pas against Jacksonville. They had a couple of games where Joe Flacco just basically kind of killed them at the end. So I liked the way they finished. I liked the way that they played with Locke, the way they've built a supporting cast around them. I don't think they're going to be incredible. I have them as a 7th seed, 9-7. Even though I'm a fan, I'm trying to be realistic about they don't have the easiest schedule either, but I think they have enough experience on defense and they have enough pieces on offense one of the things that I observed looking at Pat Shurmur's offenses is they really pound it with the tight end. They've done a lot of things in their tight end room. Jake Butt is finally healthy. He's showing out huge at camp. Albert O, who played with Locke in college, is looking really good. Fant is there. Nick Van Ett is looking really good. How's who?
Troy Fumagalli looking? How's he looking?
He's been really good too. They're going to have some sad cuts, as people have mentioned. I think it will take a little while to get some of their young receivers up and going. I'm not somebody who's thinking that Judy and or Hamler is going to have an incredible fantasy year this year, but I think with their tight ends, with two really good running backs, and with Sutton and a good defense, that they can be right in there and be a 9-7 team and make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I actually don't think their schedule is that bad because of the step forward I think their defense is going to take in getting a Bradley Chubb back. I mean, I love Chris Harris, but I think A.J. Bouye is not that far off of him just based on where the age gap now and Bouye coming over there. So I'm with you. I think the Broncos have a decent schedule. I mean, I have them winning games against like the Patriots and I don't remember who they're like. I have them winning their opening game against the Titans because I think they're gonna be able to get after the quarterback with Von Miller and Chubb, and I think that's going to be a big deal this year. So I'm all in on their defense, and that's what kind of gave me that little bit of push over the Raiders. So I'm with you. I think it's fair to say, and I guess I would ask you guys, I think the biggest thing that's going to be key for this team is Drew Lock continuing what he did last year. If he takes any kind of step back, I think that it's going to end up being the Raiders that jump up that spot instead of the Broncos. But if Locke can continue doing what he did last year and progress, the Broncos are kind of in the driver's seat to make a playoff push.
Yeah.
All right. AFC South. Who wants to go first?
I will go. So since we're doing our reversing orders, I have Titans at 10-6, winning the division. Colts 9-7, Texans 7-9, and Jaguars 3-13. In terms of predictions, I think Will Fuller ends up being the leading receiver for the Texans. For the Titans, I think A.J. Brown has another 1,000-yard season. For the Colts, I'm gonna go with Matt, and that Jonathan Taylor has a more than 1,000-yard season, because now I really need it after banking on him. And for the Jaguars, I'm gonna say Minshew does not play all 16 games.
Interesting. All right, what about you, Dennis?
Because of injury.
I think they'll end up benching.
Okay. Well, I have the Texans winning the division at 9-7, in a tie record-wise with the Titans at 9-7. The Colts at 6-10, and the Jaguars coming in at 3-13. Marrone is not going to survive the season. I went in and I really wanted to give the Jaguars more wins, because I feel like if they win, that means Minshew and his it factor are going to be something. If they struggle, if they end up with a 3-13 record, I think they're going quarterback. They're bringing in competition in the first couple rounds, somebody to go up against Minshew. Maybe they go the veteran route, depending on who the new head coach is. And so I looked, but I just couldn't find the wins anywhere. Prediction-wise, I think David Johnson in Houston is going to have 1,400 all-purpose yards. I don't really have a prediction for the Titans. I toyed around with some, and I just couldn't come up with any that I liked. In Indianapolis, I think Paris Campbell is going to lead the NFL in YAC, yards after the catch, and catch 70 passes. And in Jacksonville, I think Chris Conley is going to establish himself as the clear wide receiver 2 for Jacksonville. They're going to be behind enough that Conley and Chark, regardless of whether it's Minshew or Josh Dobbs or Mike Glennon, They're going to get plenty of targets because the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be playing catch up.
All right, so for me, I have got the Titans winning the division at 11-5. I have the Texans finishing at 8-8, the Colts at 6-10, and the Jaguars at 3-13. For the Titans, I have Jonnu Smith finishing as the second best fantasy receiving option for the Titans. For the Texans, DJ finishes as the best running back. I did that on purpose. I think it's going to be Duke Johnson finishing as the best running back, not David Johnson. For the Colts, Taylor wins Rookie of the Year and runs for 1,200-plus yards. And for the Jaguars, and this is what I was mentioning earlier with the Fournette thing, I think Armstead finishes as the Jaguars' RB for Jacksonville. I think Fournette's going to take a little bit of a slide back. So for the Jaguars, Dennis, you mentioned it. Marone's gone. Obviously, Matt, I believe you would probably agree with that if they finish where we all have them. I don't think he's back.
I don't think he should have. I mean, I was frankly surprised when they talked about cleaning house and changing the culture. That he got another stab this year. The team seemed to quit on him last year, in my opinion. So that might have been the most shocking non-removal of the season. I liked him a couple of years ago. Thought he brought some energy, but it's clear that it's just not working. But should we also pour one out for our friend Tony, who couldn't be here today?
For me, I just don't believe in Rivers. They have a phenomenal team. I think if they had any, I shouldn't say any other quarterback. If they had Gardner Minshew on the Colts would be a playoff team. Like I don't like Phillip Rivers on that team. I don't think he doesn't have the arm to get it to their deep threats. And I love Taylor behind that line, but Taylor can't do everything. So I think, and it sucks. And then the Colts was actually where I was going to go next. So I'll stay with that. What do you guys think that means? I don't think Frank Reich's going to be on the hot seat at all, but I think if they win, say 6-10, I was trying to pull it up really quick. What'd you guys have, Matt? So 5-11 and 4-12. Okay, so if they do that, they could be in that QB race. So
no, I had them at 9-7.
Oh, did you? Oh, I was looking at the Chargers. My bad. Yeah. 9-7. So
no, I didn't take a dump over Tony's team.
I tried not to, but. If they finish 6-10, they have a shot, I think, to get a decent QB in this class. But I think that's what they need. They need to get unless they think Jacob Eason's the guy. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be that great, but he could be. I think going all in on Phillip Rivers because of the connection that Frank Reich has with him, and he says he has a lot in him. From what I saw last year, I don't see it. I don't think Phillip Rivers is going to be enough to lift them into a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, I had them as good, but not great, and not good enough to get into the playoffs, which is a bummer because pre-Andrew Luck's retirement last year, I felt like they could have been a Super Bowl contender. It kind of shows you if you're missing even just that one crucial element, it can be a deal breaker.
Dennis, any thoughts on the Colts?
Nope.
No. All right, so Texans and Titans, we're all kind of split with them. Matt, you and me, I guess, don't have a – Dennis, you have them making the playoffs at 9-7? Or I would assume so. You have them winning the division, right?
Yeah, I'm winning the division.
Division, and the Titans being a wild card.
So why lower on the Titans than I guess just me, really? I mean, Matt's a game off you. What is it you think they take a step back on? Is it Ryan Tannehill?
You know, Tannehill has had bouts of inconsistency. I think they're a slow-paced team. It's A.J. Brown, it's Jonnu Smith, and Derrick Henry. They're going to need to get production from somewhere else, and I think they're susceptible because they do play at a slow pace that they can be had late. I don't know that Houston is going to be a great team, but I think Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson have a connection to be able – Watson runs that team the way O'Brien wants him to. And while they went from having a superstar in DeAndre Hopkins to having a bunch of broader options, it may bring out even more in Deshaun Watson. I called for DJ to have a good year And if he doesn't, I don't know what's behind Duke to help him out. Buddy Howell, is that the guy? Karen Higdon. So, if DJ, but I don't think they believe that Duke can carry the load any more than Cleveland believe Duke can carry the load.
They've got a great third running back in Deshaun Watson. So,
yeah, and that's at some point he's going to have to stop taking the beating. I just feel like that in the head-to-head matchups, it's going to end up splitting the hairs, and so Houston gets the higher seed of the two teams in the playoffs. They're both at 9 and 7, so they're not. It's not like one is way better than the other one. It's just one of those situations where one of them's got to be in first place technically, and the other one has to be in second place technically.
All right, so moving on to the AFC North, I will go first. So I've got the Ravens finishing as the winners of the division at 12-4. I've got the Browns finishing just behind them at 12-4. The Steelers finishing at 10-6, and the Bengals finishing at 4-12, which sucks because I tried very hard to kind of give the Bengals a couple more wins because I really think they could be a 6-win team this year, but I just ended up with them at 4-12. So my predictions are that Marquise Hollywood-Brown has a breakout season and finishes as a top 15 wide receiver. Browns, Baker, and Odell have a huge connection this year. Both finish in the top 12. Nick Chubb leads the league in rushing. Steelers, James Washington has a breakout season. And for the Bengals, Auden Tate finishes as their best fantasy wide receiver.
I like Auden Tate, man. I think he's
so do I.
He's looking good. I have the Ravens winning the division at 14-2. Why do you hate the Ravens, Matt? The Browns.
I think that's a fairly obvious question, if we're being honest.
Wait, just give it a minute. You'll see that the other Matt hates them more.
Yes, let's go.
I have the Browns second at 11-5. The Steelers third at 8-8, and the Bengals coming in at the tail end at 6-10. I think, in Baltimore with the bold predictions, I think Lamar Jackson is going to regress from both his rushing yards and his touchdown passes. He's going to end up with, 800 yards instead of 1,200 and 30 touchdowns instead of 36. I think he's going to have a significant increase in his passing yards, and rushing touchdowns and yards are going to come from the triumvirate of Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins, and Gus Edwards. For the Browns, I'm going to give Nick Chubb 1,700 rushing yards. I think he catches, 18 to 25 passes, but I think he's going to clock in at 1,700 yards rushing. I didn't have a bold prediction for the Steelers, though my developing love for Eric Ebron, if we'd have had another week or so, there might have been something there. And the Bengals, I'm with you on Auden Tate. I think Auden Tate's going to score 10 touchdowns.
All right. I like it.
All right. I have the Ravens winning the division at 10-6. The Browns in second place at 10-6. Steelers at 9-7. All three in the playoffs. Bengals at 5-11. For the Ravens, I think Mark Andrews catches over 100 passes this year. For the Steelers, I think Juju Smith-Schuster goes back to being a wide receiver one, over 100 passes and 1,500 yards. For the Browns, Nick Chubb leads the NFL in rushing. And for the Bengals, no receiver is in the top 24.
Interesting. All right. So, Bengals, none of us seem to be very high on. Are all three of us putting the Steelers in the playoffs?
I don't think Dennis did because he only went 8-8.
I did
so
not.
You had the Raiders snuck in right there as your last spot over the Steelers?
Tennessee was my seventh
gotcha.
seed.
Matt, you have them in, though, so me and you both have three teams from the AFC North? God, I hope
Yep.
I'm right this year. Fuck if the Browns
that's
fail
why
on quitting football
I
together.
feel like those teams are going to be really good.
Yeah.
They're going to kind of beat up on each other.
Yep.
When I was going around, and that it's going to be a kind of a tight pack, which we've seen in some other divisions in the last few years.
I have them all going 4-2. The only team not getting a division win is the Bengals. I have them going. I have all of them almost splitting their home games. Like I think the one the one I picked different is I went I guess bold because I do think it's going to happen. I have the Browns beating the Ravens opening weekend, but then I have the Ravens beating Cleveland in Cleveland later in the year on that Monday Night Football game. So that's the only one I have where they take an away game. Everything else I have them all kind of beating each other at home. So Steelers, I think so. Is it Ben's got to be the key cog here, right? If that elbow isn't, which can I just say really quick, and I promise this is no malicious anything toward Big Ben. Is he not the biggest fucking crybaby in football? As you guys hear the interview he gave where he's been dealing with this torn ligament in his elbow for 13 years now, and he couldn't take the pain anymore. That's such a crock of shit. I'm sorry, but if you had a torn ligament in your elbow, it's not been 13 years. No way you've been throwing the ball as much as you have for 13 years with a torn ligament in your elbow. Just saying that. He's the biggest crybaby in the world. I hate him. All I just cry about how often he gets hurt. But if he does get hurt, the Steelers are going to go to shit, correct? I think we all kind of agree on that.
Well, not to shit. I mean, they managed to be 8-8 last year with functionally nothing at the quarterback, their best receiver injured, and their best running back gone. So, I don't think shit being relative.
The Bengals will finish higher than them if Big Ben gets hurt. That's my opinion. Not much, I guess, to say really on the Ravens. I mean, we all have them winning the division, or correct, right? All of us have them winning the division. They're going to be good this year, unless I would say same thing. Unless Lamar gets hurt, I cannot see this team not performing. He balled out last year. He's going to be phenomenal again this year. So I guess why are we all buying into the Browns? I mean, my motivation is clearly obvious. I cannot separate the fan mindset. So why are you two buying into the Cleveland Browns? New coaching staff, new offensive game plan, new defensive game plans, somewhat of the same players, but already lost Grant Delpit, already lost Mac Wilson. Why are you guys buying into the Browns? Convince me to believe you.
I just feel like there's an air of competence in the general manager and head coach that I'm buying into. It's like, we have two from the offensive side of the ball, two great running backs, two great wide receivers, and two really good tight ends. We have a solid offensive line. We still got a couple things to work out. We have some playmakers on defense. I mean, the talent is there. I mean, Myles Garrett may be the best defensive end in the NFL. I get that losing Mac Wilson, I don't know. Grant Delpit was never known for his tackling, so I wasn't necessarily as high on Delpit as a lot of people. But, they're going to have to patch some things together. But this season, everybody is going to be patching stuff together. But it just feels like there's a level of competence there that has the guts to tell Jimmy Haslam to butt out.
For me, I'm going to say it's a little bit the same way as, I saw the Cowboys kind of bouncing back this year and having a good season. I think the Browns were more talented than their record last year. If you have a little bit more maturity, a little bit more time playing together and a little bit better coaching, that can make the difference and swing 3 or 4 games. And, it's not like I'm not quite like you and Dennis in the 11-12 win range. 10-6, I think is pretty doable. They were 6-10 last year with arguably some games that they gave away. So if they're a little bit of a better team, and have cleaned it up a little bit. And I think last year took, a lot of those guys did some heavy self-reflecting. You got that with comments from Baker Mayfield, from Beckham, from Landry. Hey, we aren't playing to what we could be playing. We've heard some similar things from Dallas. I think those are two teams that should have been a lot better last year and just couldn't put it together on the field. And I tend to want to bet on the talent and that they can figure it out this year.
Damn it, you guys made me a believer. Now, for me, the reason I ended up with 12 is I actually think they have a very easy schedule for the most part. Like, most of their hard opponents are going to be the Steelers and the Ravens in their division. I mean, the Titans, I did have them losing to, but I mean, they get like the Giants, the Jets. No offense, Tony, if you end up listening to this, the Colts, the Washington football team. Like, they have a lot of very winnable games on their schedule that if they take care of their business in the games they should win, it's just going to come down to what they do in the division. And if they can split those games, like I talked about, and then take 2 from the Bengals, they're going to easily get to 10 wins, in my opinion. That's why I kind of boosted them up a little bit more, just because I was like, I had them picking, like, I don't remember who. See, I don't think I gave them a big win over anybody controversial except for that Ravens home opening win. Like, well, the Cowboys, because, well, fuck the Cowboys. That's why. But outside of that, it was pretty, I felt like, all very easily winnable games. So I'm hoping. I really don't want to do this show with you every Monday, Matt, just crying like last year, because it was horrible. I really want a better year this year. All right, so let's go into our playoff talks here. I just went first, right? So Matt, you go ahead, kick us off. Who you had into the playoffs again, and then run us through who makes it to the Super Bowl, and you give us your Super Bowl prediction as well.
Yeah, so if you remember from Monday, I took the Saints as the NFC representative, so we'll just start right there. For my playoff field, I had Chiefs as the 1 seed, Bills as the 2 seed, Ravens as the 3 seed, Titans as the 4 seed, Browns as the 5 seed, Steelers as the 6 seed, and Denver as the 7 seed. Wild card round, I had the Bills beating the Broncos. Ravens taking out the Steelers, Titans taking out the Browns. Divisional round, I had the Chiefs over the Titans and the Ravens going in and upsetting the Bills. In the AFC Championship, I had the Chiefs over the Ravens in a game that I think a lot of us had hoped we might get to see last year. It would be kind of interesting. Get a year later. And in the Super Bowl, I have the Saints over the Chiefs and Drew Brees retiring.
Interesting. All right, Dennis, what about you?
So I had Baltimore is the 1 seed, KC is the 2, New England is the 3 by virtue of winning their division, Houston 4, Cleveland 5, Las Vegas 6, and Tennessee 7 is the last wild card. In the wild card round, I have Houston beating Cleveland in Houston, the Raiders upsetting New England in New England, and Tennessee losing to Kansas City. In the divisional round, I have the 2 home teams winning, Kansas City over Houston and Baltimore over the Raiders. In the championship game,
just FYI, that wouldn't be the matchup because the NFL reseeds it so that the top seed plays the lowest. Didn't you have the Chiefs as the number 1 seed?
No. I had Baltimore as the number 1 seed.
Okay,
Chiefs
then
were the 3. So I just went by what the program did. I didn't adjust.
Oh yeah, the program should seed it.
And then in the championship game, I have Baltimore beating Kansas City and going on to the Super Bowl to play the Saints, where I have Baltimore beating New Orleans.
How would you feel about that, Matt?
I would hate my life. Very much so. All right, so for me...
it was a struggle for me to get there. I really wanted the Chiefs.
Doesn't sound like it. It really doesn't.
There's so rarely does a team repeat, and rarely does a team even make it back a second time. And I just felt like everything went so well last year for the Chiefs that I just couldn't bring myself to pick them. And then I tried to let New Orleans, but I don't think New Orleans. I think that the offenses are going to be fairly evenly matched, but I picked Baltimore's defense over New Orleans' defense, and so that's where I just gave the edge to Baltimore by a hair.
Could you imagine in Dennis's scenario the poor Texans fans who have to go to play the Chiefs in the playoffs again?
Yeah. All right, so for mine, I had the Chiefs got the bye. Ravens were the 2nd seed. They went up against Pittsburgh as a 7th seed. I had Ravens winning that. Titans as a 3 seed versus the Broncos as a 6 seed. Sorry, Matt, but I did have the Titans pulling that off. And then the Bills and Browns as a 4 and 5 seed. The Browns getting that one in the wild card. In the divisional round, Ravens versus the Titans. I have the Ravens beating the Titans. And Chiefs Browns, I have the Browns beating the Chiefs. I'm just kidding. I have the Chiefs beating the Browns. And then Chiefs beating the Ravens in the championship game to go on against the Saints, and the Chiefs repeating, unfortunately. I did not want that to happen. I went very chalky.
We all picked the Saints.
Yeah, we all picked the Saints in. Yeah, so it means they're not going to make the Super Bowl. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I said. We had a bunch of people in NOLA turn us off. We've got a lot of bad reviews from the NOLA community ever since that NFC episode. But yeah, I got the Chiefs repeating. Unfortunately, I tried not to, but I think they've got just enough. I honestly kind of hope that's a Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a phenomenal Super Bowl. I think it could be very, very good offense and defense in that game. But I'd have the Chiefs just winning. So I think that's going to do it for us today. Just in enough time. I've got like 5 minutes to get ready for my Zoom draft here, so I'm going to hurry up and get out of here. But you guys have anything else you want to say? Join the Discord channel if you guys need help for any of your draft help or anything. And you can follow all of us on Twitter at SportsFanaticMB, at Culture_Coach, and at Nighthawk7734. DM us if you need the link. We will send you the link. You can jump in. We were willing to help you with anything and everything that you need. We will be back on Monday with something. I can't remember what the schedule is. I was trying to find it. There it is. We will be talking about awards, award predictions, and possibly having a special guest on either Monday or Thursday next week. Still working on that. Dennis, Matt, anything else you guys want to say?
Rock your draft.